It was a quiet Sunday afternoon at the Wilkinson County Correctional Facility in Mississippi. The visitation room buzzed softly with the murmurs of inmates and their loved ones. Children giggled. Wives kissed their husbands through the glass. And for a few precious minutes, the harshness of prison life faded behind warm embraces and soft-spoken promises. But for Deshaun Green, this Sunday would mark the end of everything he thought he knew. At 36, Deshaun had already spent 7 years behind bars. Once a promising mechanic with a sharp mind and quick hands, he fell into the wrong crowd during his late 20s and was arrested during a botched armed robbery. The court gave him 15 years. No parole until year 12. What kept him sane through those years? Naomi. Naomi Green wasn't just his wife. She was his anchor, his hope. Every visit, every phone call, every photo of their daughter she brought him kept his spirit alive inside those cold concrete walls. They had married young, straight out of high school. Naomi had been with him through it all. Even when his own family gave up on him, Naomi stood firm. She drove hours every 2 weeks just to see him, even with a toddler in tow. But something had shifted. In recent months, Naomi's visits became infrequent. She no longer answered his calls right away. When she did, she sounded distracted, distant. Her letters grew shorter, missing the little details he once clung to. "Everything's fine," she wrote. "I've just been busy with work and our little girl. You know how it is." But Deshaun knew something was off, and it wasn't just her absence. It was who replaced her. His father, Curtis Green, had started showing up in Naomi's place. Curtis was a stoic man in his early 60s. A former Army drill sergeant, he'd always carried himself with rigid pride. When Deshaun was a boy, Curtis was the kind of father who taught discipline more than affection. After Deshaun's mother passed away 10 years ago, Curtis became even more emotionally distant. They were never close. So it struck Deshaun as strange when Curtis began visiting so regularly. He brought fresh photos of his granddaughter. He talked about how Naomi was holding it together. He even brought home-cooked meals through the approved vendor service Naomi used to handle. Deshaun wanted to be grateful. Maybe his father was finally trying. But one day, a fellow inmate leaned over to him in the yard and whispered, "Hey, G, ain't none of my business, but your old man? I seen your wife get out of his truck last week. It was after dark, man. Real close." Deshaun froze. He laughed it off, said, "You trippin'." But that night, he didn't sleep. The next time Curtis came to visit, Deshaun watched him differently. Every word seemed rehearsed, every smile forced. And when Deshaun mentioned Naomi, Curtis's tone changed. Quick to change the subject. Eyes darting. Deshaun tried calling Naomi that week. She didn't answer. 3 days later, she finally picked up. "Hey," she said. "Everything okay?" "Yeah," Deshaun replied flatly. "I've just missed you." "You good?" "Yeah, just tired. Long day." "When you coming again?" Silence. Then, "Maybe next Sunday. I'll see if I can get off work." They both knew she wouldn't come. What Deshaun didn't know then was that the next time he saw Naomi would be the last. A week passed. Then 2. No Naomi. No calls. Not even a letter. Deshaun tried to tell himself it was work. The baby. Life outside moved fast. He understood that. But deep down, something inside him twisted tighter with every silent day. Then came the envelope. It wasn't from Naomi. It wasn't even official. There was no return address. Just his inmate number and a short message on the front. "Read this alone." He opened it late that night in his cell. Inside was a single sheet of notebook paper, the handwriting jagged and rushed, like someone had written it in the dark or under stress. "Your wife and your father, they ain't what you think. Ask the guards. Ask anyone. It's been going on for months. You just blind." Deshaun sat frozen. His hands trembled. He reread it. Once. Twice. A third time. His mind refused to believe it. Curtis? His own father? No, Naomi would never. She wouldn't. But then memories began crashing in. Things that hadn't made sense before suddenly lined up like puzzle pieces falling into place. The way Curtis had been too generous, too involved. The way Naomi stopped writing the same week Curtis started visiting. The way Curtis dodged any mention of her. That look in her eyes the last time she sat across from Deshawn. Guilt, not distance. Deshawn pressed the note against his chest and exhaled slowly, trying not to wake his cellmate. But rage simmered underneath his skin like hot oil waiting for a spark. He didn't sleep that night. The next morning, Deshawn asked to speak to Officer Brandon Hayes, a young rookie guard who sometimes ran mail delivery on the block. The two had struck up small talk before. Deshawn figured if anyone knew anything, it'd be him. Hayes hesitated. I mean, I probably shouldn't say anything, he said quietly. But I ain't gonna lie. Folks been talking. Talking about what? Your wife. Your pops. They came here together a couple weeks back, right? They didn't sit next to each other, but he paused, lowered his voice. But they left together. Real close. Too close. Deshawn stared at the floor. He wasn't just angry. He was ashamed. Ashamed he didn't see it sooner. Ashamed he defended them in his head. Ashamed he still wanted to believe Naomi loved him. That day, he didn't go to yard. He didn't eat. He sat in his bunk, staring at the ceiling. He thought about his daughter, a bright, smiley 6-year-old who looked just like Naomi. What would she think if she knew? Would she blame him one day for what he was about to do? 2 days later, Deshawn filled out a visitation request form. He asked for Naomi. He told the guards he wanted to apologize for the way he'd been acting. Said he just needed to see her one last time. She agreed. The visit was scheduled for Sunday afternoon. The same time, same room where they used to share smiles and hold hands across the table. But this time, Deshawn wasn't coming for closure. He was coming for the truth, and maybe something more. Sunday afternoon arrived like thunder. Deshawn sat in the visitation room with his hands clenched under the table. His breathing was slow, but his heart pounded like a drum inside his chest. The fluorescent lights buzzed above, and the room smelled faintly of disinfectant and vending machine coffee. It had been months since he last saw Naomi in person. When she walked in, something twisted in his chest. She looked different, tired, nervous. Her hair was pulled back, her eyes shaded with a hint of guilt. But she still wore the necklace he gave her back in 2011, the one with their initials carved on the back. That cut deep. Hey, she said, sitting down across from him. Hey, Deshawn replied, voice low. For a moment, silence settled between them. Unspoken weight hung in the air like smoke. I'm glad you called, Naomi finally said. I didn't know if you wanted to see me anymore. Deshawn stared at her. I got your letters, he said. Then I stopped getting them. She looked down. I've been overwhelmed. Work. The baby. Life's just. Stop, he said. His voice didn't rise, but it cut through the room like ice. Naomi, he continued, locking eyes with her, don't lie to me. Not here. Not today. Her lip trembled. What are you talking about? You know what I'm talking about. Naomi swallowed hard. Deshawn leaned forward. Are you sleeping with him? She blinked. Ooh, he didn't say it. He didn't have to. Curtis, he said anyway. My father. My blood. Naomi's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Deshawn slammed his fist on the table. Not enough to draw attention, but enough to make her jump. Don't lie to me, Naomi. I need you to say it. Her shoulders slumped. Tears filled her eyes. And then, finally, with a voice so soft it nearly broke him, she whispered, yes. The word echoed inside Deshawn's skull like a gunshot. He leaned back, staring at her like she was a stranger. He felt numb, detached, like he wasn't even in his body anymore. How long? He asked. Naomi wiped her face. It started after your mom passed. He was always around. helping with the baby, fixing things around the house. I was alone. You weren't alone, Deshawn snapped. I was still your husband. Just because I was behind bars doesn't mean I stopped existing. She didn't respond. He lowered his voice again. Was it love? Naomi hesitated. I don't know, she whispered. At first, I was just lost. But now, I'm not sure. Deshawn's throat tightened. He clenched his jaw, trying to hold back the tears burning his eyes. I gave you everything I had, he said. Even from in here, I kept fighting for us. I never looked at another woman, never gave up on you. And you gave yourself to him. She started to cry again. I'm sorry. I never meant. But you did it, he interrupted. You meant it every time you let him touch you. Naomi broke into sobs. Guards watched from across the room, but everything looked normal from the outside. Just a couple in a painful conversation. No shouting. No violence. Deshawn reached into the paper bag of approved snacks Naomi had brought. Inside, beneath a sandwich and a packet of cookies, was a plastic fork, one of the disposable kind. His fingers brushed it. He paused. He stared at her. Then he let go. Not today. Not in front of cameras. Not yet. But something had shifted in him. Something cold, final, and dangerous. He leaned forward, whispering slowly, like each word was a drop of poison. You killed me, Naomi. And now, I don't know what kind of man I have to become to live with what you did. She sobbed, her face buried in her hands. Deshawn stood, without a goodbye, without a backward glance. He walked out of that room a different man than the one who had walked in. And in just 7 days, he would return. But next time, it wouldn't be for closure. It would be for justice. The following Sunday, everything felt still. The guards called it a routine visitation day. But for Deshawn Green, it was execution day, not by law but by heart. He had spent the week in a daze, not eating, barely sleeping, haunted by images of Naomi and his own father together. He replayed every memory of her laughter, every phone call, every kiss they once shared. Each one felt like a lie now, hollowed out by betrayal. In his cell, Deshawn wrote a letter to his daughter. He tucked it under his pillow, folded neatly with her name on the front. Then he waited for the guards to call his name. 2:08 p.m., visitation room. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, humming like insects in a summer field. Deshawn sat in the same chair, same table. Only this time, he wasn't nervous. He wasn't hopeful. He was empty. Naomi walked in wearing jeans and a plain yellow sweater. Her hair was tied back. She smiled weakly, as if still trying to salvage something from the wreckage. Deshawn didn't smile back. She sat down. I wasn't sure you'd want to see me again, she said softly. I wasn't sure either, Deshawn replied, voice flat. Naomi reached for the paper bag of snacks she'd brought. Vending machine chips, cookies, bottled water. Harmless things. You still like these, right? She asked, holding up a peanut butter bar. He didn't answer. She looked down. I wanted to talk. Try to explain. There's nothing left to explain, he said, interrupting. Naomi sighed. You're right. There was a pause. I never meant to hurt you, Deshawn, she said. But your father, he was there, and I was falling apart. I thought you'd never come home. I thought. Stop, he said sharply. She looked up, startled. He leaned in slowly. You thought wrong. He reached into the paper bag and pulled out a white plastic fork, the kind you can't hurt anyone with. But tucked beneath it, taped carefully under the wrapper, was a sharpened toothbrush handle, filed down over weeks, hidden away for this moment. Naomi's eyes widened. Deshawn, what are you? He lunged. It happened so fast. Even the guards missed the first few seconds. Deshawn shoved the table aside and grabbed her by the neck, yanking her across the table as she screamed. His hands wrapped around her throat, and the makeshift shank slid in her side. Once, twice, 3 times. Blood sprayed across the table. Naomi's eyes bulged in shock, betrayal, terror. and finally stillness. By the time guards reached them, Deshawn was on his knees, his hands covered in blood, the shank resting beside him. He didn't fight, didn't scream, didn't cry. He looked up at the guard, Officer Hayes, and said calmly, "Tell my daughter I'm sorry, but I couldn't let her grow up thinking this was love." The visitation room was locked down for hours. Naomi Green was pronounced dead at the scene. Cause of death: strangulation and multiple stab wounds. Deshawn was immediately transferred to solitary confinement. He refused a lawyer, refused to speak. He only asked for one thing: to send my letter to my baby girl. News spread fast. The prison issued a statement. An inmate fatally attacked a visitor during a scheduled visitation. The incident is under investigation, but the media ran with it. Visitation room murder. Inmate kills wife over affair with his own father. Shock rippled through the community. Naomi had been a church volunteer, a devoted mother, a woman many thought of as a quiet, kind soul. And yet, behind closed doors, a secret had destroyed an entire family. Back in his cell, Deshawn sat alone, staring at the wall. The rage was gone now. What was left was silence and guilt. The prison went into lockdown for 48 hours. Every cell was searched, every visitor log reviewed, every guard questioned. But nothing anyone did could change the fact that Naomi Green was gone. Murdered inside a place that was supposed to keep everyone safe, even from the ones they loved. Deshawn said nothing during his initial questioning. He sat with his hands folded in his lap, still stained with dried blood, and stared through the detectives like they weren't there. "Mr. Green, do you understand the charges being brought against you?" the investigator asked. He nodded slowly. "Do you wish to make a statement?" Deshawn looked up. "She was my wife, and he was my father. That's all the statement I have." They asked about the weapon, how it got inside. He refused to speak. They asked about premeditation. He remained silent. Finally, the detective sighed. "You'll be charged with first-degree murder. If you have anything to say to help yourself, now's the time." Deshawn didn't blink. There's nothing left to help. Outside the prison, news of the murder swept across local and national media. Husband kills wife inside Mississippi prison after discovering affair with his father. The Green family tragedy, betrayal, blood, and a daughter left behind. The public was torn. Some called Deshawn a monster. Others saw him as a man pushed beyond human limits. But the focus soon turned to Curtis Green, the man at the center of it all. When reporters showed up outside his modest home on the outskirts of Natchez, he refused to answer questions. Cameras caught him yelling at them from the porch, his face twisted in something between guilt and rage. He was subpoenaed to testify before the grand jury as part of Deshawn's upcoming trial. And when that day came, he finally broke his silence. In the courtroom, Curtis took the stand with trembling hands. His once proud frame had shrunk. His voice cracked as he spoke. "I never meant to fall into it. Naomi was she was lonely. I was lonely. We started spending time together, picking up the girl from daycare, fixing her car, little things. Then it became more." When asked if he regretted it, Curtis looked out at the gallery and said, "I regret everything. I lost my son. I lost my granddaughter. And I lost whatever part of myself I thought was still decent." He admitted he knew Naomi was still in love with Deshawn. He admitted he felt shame, not just because it was wrong, but because he saw what it did to the people he was supposed to protect. Deshawn sat in the courtroom wearing shackles and a county-issued jumpsuit. He didn't look at his father, didn't flinch when Curtis cried, didn't speak when the judge asked if he had anything to say. But the letter he wrote to his daughter was read aloud by his attorney, with his permission. It read, "My sweet girl, by the time you read this, I will be far from you. Not because I wanted to leave, but because I failed to be strong enough to handle what was done to me. What your mother did was wrong. What your grandfather did was worse. But what I did, that was unforgivable. I need you to know, none of this was your fault. You were the only good thing we ever did. I hope one day you'll find love that doesn't lie. A life that doesn't destroy. I'll be watching. Love, Daddy. The courtroom was silent. Even the prosecutor looked shaken. But justice, as always, had to be done. The state charged Deshawn with first-degree murder, citing clear premeditation and intent. The presence of a hidden weapon and the violent nature of the act made it impossible to plead temporary insanity or crime of passion. The only debate left was whether he would ever walk free again. It was a packed courtroom that day. Reporters lined the back row. Locals filled the benches like it was Sunday morning service. The story had struck a nerve: betrayal, family murder. It had everything America couldn't look away from. But Deshawn Green wasn't watching the crowd. He sat silently at the defendant's table, hands cuffed, face unreadable. The prosecution opened with a clear message. This was not an act of passion. This was premeditated murder. Mr. Green made a weapon. He hid it. He waited. And then, in cold blood, he killed his wife during a scheduled visitation, in a room full of families, children, guards. This was rage, yes, but rage with planning. They displayed the plastic fork, the sharpened toothbrush handle, the photo of Naomi's body slumped across the table with blood pooling beneath her. Deshawn didn't blink. Then it was time for the defense. His public defender wasn't flashy. He didn't argue innocence. Instead, he made a plea for understanding. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we are not here to decide whether Mr. Green committed the act. He did. We are here to decide why he did it, and what that means for justice. This man was betrayed in the deepest way possible. By his wife. By his father. While confined in a place where he had no power, no voice, no control. And yet, he still didn't lash out immediately. He confronted her. He walked away the first time. He gave her a chance to explain. But the wound never healed. It festered. What happened in that room was the tragic result of a broken heart, shattered trust, and a man who no longer knew how to live with what was done to him. He paused, then added quietly, "This was not a monster. This was a husband." The courtroom fell into a hush as Deshawn took the stand, not to deny what he did, but to explain what drove him to it. He looked older than his 36 years, exhausted, hollowed out. "I know I'll never see the outside of a prison again," he began, "and I accept that. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just want my daughter to grow up knowing the truth. Naomi was my world, and Curtis, he was the first man I ever looked up to. I wrote letters to that woman every week. I dreamed about our future every night. And when I found out they were together, it didn't just hurt me. It broke me. I didn't go into that room to kill her. I went in hoping I was wrong, hoping she'd deny it, that somehow it was all a lie. But when she said yes, something in me snapped. And before I knew it, I had done something I can't take back." He swallowed hard. "If I could undo it, I would. Not for her, but for our daughter, because now she has no mother and no father." The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they returned, the courtroom held its breath. "We, the jury, find the defendant, Deshawn Green, guilty of murder in the first degree." A few gasps echoed through the room. Naomi's sister broke into tears. Curtis sat in the back, eyes closed, jaw clenched. Deshawn didn't move. Sentencing was swift. The judge, an older black man with weary eyes, looked down at Deshawn with both sternness and sadness. "Mr. Green, you committed a heinous act, not just of violence, but of tragedy. In the eyes of the law, betrayal is not justification for murder. And yet, I cannot ignore the pain that led you here. You are a product of your choices, yes, but also of deep emotional ruin. This court hereby sentences you to life in prison without the possibility of parole." Back in his cell, Deshawn received one final letter. From Curtis. Inside was a single sentence. I live with what I did every day, and that is my prison. Deshawn folded it once, then tore it in half. He placed it in the trash without a word. Then he returned to his bunk, picked up his pen, and began writing his daughter another letter. Because prison would take everything else from him, but not that. 3 months after the sentencing, the world moved on. The reporters stopped calling. The hashtags disappeared. The courtroom benches sat empty again. But for Deshawn Green, time stood still. He was transferred to Parchman Farm, Mississippi State Penitentiary, one of the oldest and toughest prisons in the South. Inmates called it the farm, but to Deshawn, it was just another graveyard of men who'd lost everything. His cell was small. No windows, a steel bed frame, a thin mattress, a chipped sink. There was no more peanut butter from Naomi. No letters to look forward to. Just the steady drip of regret echoing inside his chest. Every morning, he woke at 5 a.m. 8. Sat in silence. Thought about what he'd done. Not the stabbing. Not the screaming. Not even the blood. But the look in Naomi's eyes right before the end. It wasn't fear. It wasn't even betrayal. It was heartbreak. And no matter how justified Deshawn once felt, that expression haunted him now. What hurt the most wasn't prison. It was missing his daughter. She was 7 now. Deshawn hadn't seen her in nearly a year. He'd written her letters, dozens. Some never mailed. Others returned unopened by her aunt, who now had custody. Each week, he sat at the plastic table in the common room, pencil in hand, trying to find the right words for a little girl he barely knew anymore. Sweetheart, I hope you're growing strong and smart like your mama. I hope you still like strawberries and drawing butterflies like you used to. I know I hurt you. I know I hurt her. And I know saying sorry isn't enough. But I still love you. I always will. He drew a small heart in the corner, folded it gently, and prayed someone, someday, would read it to her. Outside the prison walls, Curtis Green lived in self-imposed exile. He sold the house, moved to a small trailer near the Louisiana border, and stopped going to church. Folks said he aged 10 years and 6 months. No one saw him much, except at the liquor store on Friday nights. He never spoke publicly again, but rumor had it he tried once to visit Deshawn. The request was denied. Deshawn had only one word scrawled in the prison's visitor log next to his father's name. Never. In the town of Natchez, where the Greens had once lived, people still whispered. Some called Naomi a homewrecker. Others blamed Curtis. A few even quietly said Deshawn had been pushed too far. But most just mourned. Not for Naomi, not for Deshawn, but for their daughter, a child now caught in the wreckage of 3 destroyed lives. She was being raised by Naomi's sister, a nurse named Keisha. The girl didn't speak much about her parents. She carried a small photograph in her backpack, a faded picture of the 3 of them at a carnival, back when everything still made sense. One day at school, a teacher overheard her whisper to another child, "My daddy's not dead. He just went to a place where sad people live." And in Parchman, Deshawn kept writing, letter after letter, page after page. It was all he had left. That, and the memory of a love that had once meant everything, and a moment of rage that had taken it all away. 3 years passed. Deshawn Green became another name, another number in the system. He wasn't the angry man who walked into that visitation room anymore. He wasn't even the man who stood trial. He was quieter now, thinner. His beard had turned almost entirely gray. He took a job in the prison library, shelving books, checking out paperbacks to other inmates. He liked the silence, the routine. It dulled the sharp edges inside him. But there was one thing that remained unchanged. He still wrote her. Every Sunday, rain or shine, hope or hopelessness. Even if the letters were never answered, even if they never reached her, he wrote like she was right there, sitting on the floor, legs crossed, waiting to hear her daddy's voice again. One morning in early fall, something changed. A letter came for him, not from his father, not from the courts. The handwriting was small and clumsy, like a child still learning to form her letters. On the front, to Dad, from me. He sat down on the edge of his bunk, his hands shaking as he unfolded the paper. Inside was a drawing, crayon strokes on lined notebook paper, a stick figure of a man with a heart on his chest, holding the hand of a little girl with curly hair and a purple dress. Next to it, in crooked letters, I miss you. I think about you. I know what you did, and I still love you. Your daughter, M. Deshawn didn't cry. Not out loud, but something cracked open inside him, something that had been frozen solid for years. He folded the letter with care, slipped it into his Bible, and for the first time in a long time, he prayed, not for forgiveness, not for freedom, not even for peace. He prayed for her, for the little girl who still believed in him, even after everything. Years from now, that girl will grow up. She may never visit him. She may never ask the full truth, but she'll always carry a part of him with her, the part that still writes, still waits, still loves. And maybe, just maybe, that will be enough. If this story moved you or made you think, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new true crime story we share every single day. Thank you for being here, and stay safe out there.